Lagos State protesters demand compensation over coastal road demolitions. Protesters under the Justice for Coastal Road movement staged a peaceful demonstration in Lagos, decrying mass demolitions linked to the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project. Organized by the coalition of concerned individuals, the protest highlighted the government's failure to provide adequate or any compensation for destroyed properties with claimed losses exceeding $250 million. Spokesperson Shina Loremika criticized the federal government's handling of the project, citing disregard for due process and property rights. He asserted that development must not come at the expense of citizens' welfare, insisting on transparent, inclusive practices in national infrastructure projects. Earlier, protests in areas like Okun Aja have now grown into a broader campaign amplified on social media. Protesters are demanding an immediate review of the compensation process, restoration of due process, and a people-centered approach to development, warning against further human rights violations under the guise of progress. Ndamzi, what do you make of this story?
Yes, thank you very much, Laurentia. Nigerians and also foreigners resident in Nigeria, or those who take special interest in Nigeria, have the right under our laws to own properties here in the country. And also, government does not possess the right to demolish anyone's property without adequate compensation. Okay, but nonetheless, there are conditions wherein government can demolish properties without compensation. Okay, I am not privy of the situation on the coastal highway, whether the situation, is in sync with such conditions where government can demolish and refuse to pay compensation. And one of those conditions are, one, when you make a claim that it's above 28 days, wherein government notices have expired, government may reserve the right not to compensate you because it is not in compliance to the Urban and Regional Planning Act of 1992, particularly in section 43 sub 5 of that act. And also, when a builder or a developer developed a property, that is not in tune or in compliance to the building code or the building permit of government, when government finds out that you did not build accordingly as permitted, government also may reserve the right to demolish, okay, without compensation. And also, when an individual does not possess any form of approval to build, we have seen situations where some persons build on government right of way. Most persons build on maybe reserved properties and all that. So when government finds out such situations, government reserves the right to demolish, and such individual will not be entitled to any form of compensation. But in situations where government have adequately served notices to affected individuals, and individuals follow the right channel of communicating with government, because when government intends to acquire a property, or maybe government intends to take out a right of way from a particular locality, government duly will serve notices to affected persons, and there will be conditions set on the notice as to how procedurally people can assess their compensation. So these are the nitty-gritties behind whether or not government can pay compensation or not to the affected persons.
Right. Now, the demolition of the coastal highway has been, the demolitions, of properties along the coastal highway, when, David Umahi, the Minister of Works, started this project, it was quite controversial. And there were a lot of calls by individuals and groups as well, pleading with the government to, reconsider the path, reconsider the path of the coastal highway so as not to. I recall that there was a major investment in that area that was demolished as well. But interestingly, after that demolition, the ministry now came up with alternate route. However, demolitions have been made, and I recall then that it also caused a lot of anger on the side of Nigerians who took to social media to call out the government, why demolishing some of those properties now, and then much later you are reconsidering another route. Why didn't you reconsider before that demolition was done? And then there were accusations of that particular demolition being politicized. Now, looking at this whole thing right now, and this is not the first time individuals will come out to accuse the government of demolishing their properties without adequate compensation, even when they have met all these requirements. At that point, what do you think these people can do? I know that as a lawyer, you are going to say go to court. But yes, then there is trust deficit between the people and the judiciary.
Yes, Lorenza, thank you for that wonderful question, because this is just about finding solutions to those affected in that coastal highway. Basically, when government is not complying to anything, we can't fight government. We can only but exercise our right of protesting, because protest is a form of directly communicating to government openly what role they should play.
Does it work in Nigeria?
Even though we know the Nigerian factor is very dicey, but we can't still rule out the fact that we should continue protesting legally and peacefully anyway.
Right.
But like I said before ab initio, everybody in Nigeria have the right, whether you are a foreigner, you own a business, you have the right to own property. Okay, and no government can demolish without paying adequate compensation. So in situations where government do that and they are not forthcoming with the compensation,
and if the compensations are not they are not commensurate.
No, basically here in Nigeria, I've not seen any affected person who can publicly say that he or she was paid very well, or he or she was paid something that is adequate to the market value of such property. And it is meant to believe that government does not compensate for the land. Government only compensate for the exhausted improvement, which we know as structure on the land. So you see, with that happening, you can't adequately get a value for your property. So when such persons are affected, the proper advice to them will be to approach the court to enforce their rights, because property owning in Nigeria is as of right. So government cannot demolish your property without paying. If they do that, Nigerians, please approach the court.
All right.